the dark.
It was this blood that was used to ink the book.
Both the Marvel Universe's Darkhold and the Evil Dead franchise's Necronomicon Ex-Mortis, a.k.a. the Book of the Dead, are ancient evil spell books that reek of dark magic, and the worst of death consequences should be dreaded by one and all. But it is the nature of humans to play with forces they don't understand, and that's precisely why we're going to explore these two books to the best of our abilities and see which one should be feared more, which one's more dangerous. So both books exist in entirely different fictional universes and continuities to begin with, as in the Darkhold is a Marvel property, while the Necronomicon was the brainchild of horror legend H.P. Lovecraft. However, the Necronomicon also exists in Marvel as a book that was inspired by the Darkhold. But for this video, we'll consider the books to come from two different universes, that is, the Marvel universe and the Evil Dead universe. So before we begin to see how these malevolent manuscripts stack up against each other, please consider hitting those like and subscribe buttons. Those two small clicks from you will help us tremendously in bringing you more of these marvelous videos. And now let's begin. Power level. Which is more powerful? When it comes to sheer power, Marvel's Darkhold is arguably the more cosmically powerful of the two, while the Necronomicon is devastatingly potent in its own horror world. I'll explain how. The Darkhold was created by an elder god named Chthon, who poured the most repugnant and terrifying spells imaginable into it eons ago. It essentially contains all of Marvel's darkest magic, making it a direct conduit to an elder demonic god's power. That's why Marvel often treats the Darkhold as a character in its own right, instead of merely a book. In fact, Marvel's official lore notes that other infamous spellbooks like the Necronomicon took inspiration from it, which only goes on to speak volumes about the Darkhold's primal supremacy over its Evil Dead counterpart. With this insane pedigree, the Darkhold's spells have affected the entire world. For instance, it even wiped out all vampires worldwide at one point. But that's nothing to its day job, which is basically threatening the multiverse itself, multiple times at that. Even in the MCU, the Darkhold let Wanda Maximoff dreamwalk across universes and nearly annihilate anyone in her way, making her a multiversal scale threat. By comparison, the Necronomicon Ex-Mortis from Evil Dead is supremely powerful on a more localized horror scale. This Sumerian tome, bound in human flesh and inked in blood, can summon demons, unleash plagues, and resurrect the dead in its known universe. Reading its pages awakens eldritch evil known as the Kandarian demon, leading to demonic possession outbreaks and undead carnage. In its world, that's apocalyptic. It can obliterate entire groups of people and even threaten the world if the evil spreads. And more often than not, evil does spread. However, the scope tends to be limited to one planet or dimension at a time. In fact, it's geographically limited to a town mostly. The Necronomicon's power is immense, more than enough to slaughter dozens of hapless humans in creatively gruesome ways. But it doesn't usually rewrite reality on a global scale the way the Darkhold can through an elder god's will. In short, Darkhold can be considered superior when we talk about raw power and range, of course, thanks to the fact that it's backed by a god and full of limitless spells. On the other hand, the Necronomicon, which by the way is no slouch, so this one catalyzes Evil Dead's hell on Earth, but its power is mainly measured by unleashed demons and curses rather than multiversal magic, or even global magic for that matter. Magical and supernatural abilities. It's beyond an ounce of doubt that both books are laced with all sorts of dark spells and uncanny abilities, but they differ in flavor and variety. The Darkhold contains virtually every dark spell imaginable in the Marvel Universe, effectively making it a catch-all source of black magic. Its pages hold rights for summoning or creating monsters. For example, it was used to spawn the first vampire, Varney, and contains the secret to the werewolf curse. It includes world-altering incantations. For example, the Montesi formula, a spell that, when invoked by Doctor Strange, eradicated all vampires on Earth. The Darkhold can empower sorcerers and demons. One villain used it to engulf Manhattan in eternal darkness, and the homicidal symbiote Carnage briefly gained godlike power from it. In the MCU, the Darkhold's known tricks include enabling astral possession or dreamwalking, which lets people project into alternate universes or control others' bodies, conjure armies of dark entities, abilities, and vastly amplify a sorcerer's abilities in chaos magic. In essence, if there's a dark magical feat in Marvel, mind control, reality warping, elementals, curses, dimensional portals, the Darkhold probably has a spell for it. Its only real limitation is the corrupting toll it takes on the user, but more on that later. On the other side of this battle of books, we have the Necronomicon, the diabolical pages of which are filled with Sumerian incantations and rituals specifically tied to demonic forces and the undead. Its most infamous ability is that simply reading it aloud will unleash a Kandarian demon and an onslaught of deadites, which are basically demonic zombies or possessed people. The book can grotesquely resurrect the dead. Corpses rise as violent deadites under demonic control. On rare occasions, it even has spells to resurrect a person to true life, but don't count on those working out well. It also contains passages to open rifts in time and space. In Evil Dead 2, reciting those passages created a hellish vortex that sucked the demon and our hero Ash through time. The Necronomicon holds prophecies and knowledge of evil. For example, it predicted a hero from the sky in its pages, basically Ash Williams once again. It even acts as a demonology guidebook, describing various demonic entities and how to summon or possibly stop them. In short, its powers center on summoning and controlling evil forces, raising the dead, spreading curses like tree spirits or plagues of darkness, and warping reality in a localized way. One could even brew potions from its instructions, or, as we saw in the TV series, speak to the book's sentient visage. Physically, the Necronomicon sometimes displays a life of its own. I mean, it has a nasty habit of biting anyone who grabs it in the wrong way, and it can't simply be tossed aside when it's hungry for souls. History, origins, and role in their universes. The Darkhold's origin in Marvel Comics is ancient, and of course multiversal, cosmic, whatever you want to call it, just that it's beyond an earthly book, way beyond. It was authored billions of years ago by Chthon, an elder god-turned-demon who inscribed all his dark magical knowledge onto indestructible parchments. These scrolls were later bound into the tome called the Darkhold, also nicknamed the Book of Sins or Book of the Damned. Chthon deliberately left the Darkhold on Earth as a tether to influence the mortal world and as a possible doorway for his return. I mean, this guy knew exactly what humans are capable of, or how far they would go for power. And we humans, we know exactly what happened to the curious cat, but we still let our curiosity get the better of us. Throughout history, the Darkhold has resurrected at various turning points. It was found in Atlantis in prehistoric times, and used by a cult, the Darkholders, to create the first vampire before Atlantis sank. In the millennia that followed, its pages passed through the hands of sorcerers, priests, and evil scholars. Medieval legend has it Morgan Le Fay studied it. By the 17th century, it was held briefly by the Vatican until stolen. Turns out Dracula really wanted it. In Marvel's modern era, it's been a focal point of numerous storylines. It's driven people insane. For instance, archaeologists in the 1920s went mad trying to translate it. It has also led to clashes between heroes and villains over its contents. Doctor Strange himself has tangled with the Darkhold multiple times, recognizing it as one of the ultimate evils. One time, the Sorcerer Supreme used the Darkhold's Montesi formula to vanquish vampires, which was one of the rare instances that showed that the book can ironically be used for a greater good by a hero, albeit temporarily. The Darkhold is basically a persistent plot device in Marvel, tied to the origins of vampires, werewolves, and other supernatural beings, coveted by the likes of Dracula, Doctor Doom, Red Skull, and Baron Zemo, and even forms the basis of an entire Midnight Suns spin-off series. Its role is always that of a volatile source of forbidden power. Whoever controls the Darkhold can upend the world, but the book might upend them first. Now, as far as the Marvel Cinematic Universe is concerned, the Darkhold's history is slightly streamlined, but similar in spirit. It was said to be transcribed from dark runes carved by Chthon on Wundagore Mount. At some point, a copy of it fell into the hands of Agatha Harkness, a Salem witch turned bad guy, and later Wanda Maximoff obtained it. Its past MCU appearances also include a run-in with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., where an evil android and Ghost Rider fought over it, and a stint in the possession of Morgan Le Fay in a Runaways TV crossover, which goes on to say that there were at least multiple copies of the Darkhold in the MCU's multiverse. By the end of Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, Wanda destroyed the Darkhold, and seemingly every copy across universes, to prevent its corrupting influence from ever never returning. In any universe, the Darkhold's role is super important as the ultimate dark magic MacGuffin that heroes fear and villains lust after. The Necronomicon's origin in the Evil Dead franchise is equally evil and ominous, but it's submerged and heavily soaked in Lovecraftian horror. It was originally conceived by H.P. Lovecraft as a fictional grimoire in his stories, and Sam Raimi's Evil Dead adopted and reimagined it. In the Evil Dead canon, the book was written by the Dark Ones, a cabal of ancient demonic entities as a weapon to conquer the world. It's an ancient Sumerian text and is often linked to Klingon-sounding incantations like Klaatu Verada Niktu. Bound in flesh and filled with blood-inked pages, the Necronomicon was lost to time until human fools, or unlucky explorers, kept rediscovering it. Medieval accounts in Army of Darkness from 1300 AD show wise men safeguarding it, and we see 3 slightly different copies exist, a foreshadowing gag that becomes important later. In the modern era, that is the 1980s, Professor Raymond Noby unearthed the Necronomicon at Castle Kandar ruins and brought it to a certain cabin in the woods, with disastrous results. From the remote cabin in the Evil Dead, which is set in the year 1981, to the city high-rise in Evil Dead Rise from 2023, whenever this book surfaces, it demands to be read and then proceeds to wreak bloody havoc. The Necronomicon's journey from ancient Sumeria to a dusty Tennessee cabin is, in my humble opinion, one of the most profound and thrilling tales of bloodshed and madness, each new chapter baked in the oven of suffering of those it fooled and tricked. In the Ash vs. Evil Dead series, if we include it, the book bounces around. It even briefly falls into the hands of a demon named Ruby, who tries to tame its power for herself, which shows that even demonic beings want this book. In summary, the Necronomicon's role is to unleash evil and drive the plot of the Evil Dead stories. It's the cursed catalyst for demon resurrections, time warps, and slapstick gore, always appearing in the best places to ruin a perfectly good day for the protagonists, turning that place into the worst place on the face of the earth. Now, I was telling you how Marvel Comics actually acknowledges the Necronomicon in its canon, right? Let me explain a bit more. According to Marvel, the Necronomicon was derived from a small part of lore from the Shiatra Book of the Damned, or was based or patterned after it. And in one storyline, a sorcerer, more specifically the Atlantean named Logomancer, theorized that the Darkhold, the Necronomicon, the Oracles of Zoroaster, and other occult books are all imperfect copies of primeval occult knowledge recorded by ancient beings, the Great Old Ones. In other words, Marvel cheekily suggests that Evil Dead's Necronomicon and Marvel's Darkhold might share a common source in the grimdark cosmic past. Reversibility of their effects. Can you undo the evil? One major question for any cursed book is, once you've unleashed its magic, how permanent or reversible are the effects of the Darkhold and Necronomicon? Can you put the genie back in the bottle? Well, more often than not, you cannot. Yet, we'll take a look at both books to come to a conclusion. Let's start with the Darkhold. The Darkhold's magic usually comes with a terrible price, but in many cases can be countered or undone, albeit with extreme effort and often unintended consequences. For example, when Doctor Strange cast the Montesi formula from the Darkhold to destroy all vampires, it indeed wiped out Marvel's vampires, but only for a time, as the spell was later undone and the bloodsuckers returned. This implies that even world-altering Darkhold spells aren't always permanent. There's often a mystical loophole or a counterspell. I mean, even Thanos' snap wasn't permanent, so it's no wonder that magic in Marvel is reversible. You see, Marvel is not a horror franchise, and both good and evil exist here in equal numbers, if not more. Naturally, much like Thanos, Marvel believes in balance. In Marvel lore, the benevolent Book of the Vishanti exists as a direct antidote to the Darkhold's dark magic, and basically provides light magic alternatives to undo or ward off the Darkhold's spells. So a skilled sorcerer with the right tools can reverse many Darkhold-born curses. Indeed, Strange and Company often scramble to fix Darkhold messes. That said, the corruption it causes in the user's soul is not so easily washed away. The Darkhold tends to drive readers mad or turn them evil, which is harder to reverse. In the MCU, Wong flat out states that the Darkhold corrupts everything and everyone that it touches. We see this with Agatha's sinister turn, Wanda's descent into murderous dark magic, and even Doctor Strange gaining a third eye as a lasting mark of Darkhold exposure. You might destroy the book or cast a counterspell, but the stains on one's mind and body linger. longer. You see, Wanda only broke free of its influence by effectively sacrificing herself and destroying every last copy of the Darkhold. So it would not be entirely wrong to say that specific Darkhold spells can be reversed with enough magical firepower or the right ritual, but the chaos it unleashes tends to leave a permanent scar. There's always a cost to undoing Darkhold magic. Often, another act of great power or sacrifice is required. Now, coming to the other side, the Evil Dead Necronomicon's effects are notoriously difficult to fully undo. It's more about survival and containment than true reversal. Once someone has read from the book and unleashed the Kandarian demon, all hell breaks loose. Sometimes literally. And there's no simple Control-Z for that. The most you can do is stop the immediate evil, usually by performing another ritual from the book to contain or expel the demons. In Evil Dead 2, Annie Nobi recites passages from the Necronomicon to open a rift and banish the Kandarian demon back to wherever it came from. That successfully stops the undead onslaught, but it doesn't undo the death and destruction already wrought. Half the cast was dismembered by then. Oops. In other cases, the only cure for a Deadite possession is decidedly permanent. You usually have to kill the host, often via chainsaw or shotgun, because why not, to stop the demon from using their body. There are a few instances of partial reversals, though. For example, in Evil Dead from 2013, the hero manages to save a possessed friend by literally burying her alive and then reviving her, which purges the demon. It worked once, but that's not exactly a standard, user-friendly cure. Generally, if the Necronomicon turns your sister into a tree-raping ghoul, you're not getting your sister back, you're grabbing an axe. The Necronomicon itself is nearly indestructible to boot. Characters attempt to destroy it, burning it, shredding it, with mixed results. It's been set on fire, blasted with shotguns, even run through a wood chipper, and yet it has a way of coming back. Different copies or universes have different outcomes. The Evil Dead franchise explicitly shows there are multiple copies across realities, so even if you manage to destroy one book, another may surface. All told, the damage done by the Necronomicon tends to be permanent. Dead folks stay dead or become deadites, trauma sticks, and maybe you'll close the portal or exorcise the demon if you're very lucky. You can survive the Necronomicon's ordeal, but you rarely restore the status quo to what it was before the book was read. At best, you contain the evil until the next poor fool pops open the cover. What else do we know about these books? Both books are extremely dangerous, but in different flavors. The Darkhold's danger is more intellectual and spiritual. You read it, you lose your soul or sanity. For example, just translating parts of it drove people insane. It's the kind of book that tempts sorcerers with promises of ultimate knowledge only to damn them. The Necronomicon's danger is more physical and immediate. Read from it, and your friends and family will literally turn into monsters and try to kill you within minutes. There's a running gag or warning in Evil Dead: don't read the Latin. Of course, someone always does. The Necronomicon is like a horror jack-in-the-box. Open it and bam! Deadite destruction until dawn. In pop culture terms, the Necronomicon is practically synonymous with cursed evil book. It's shown up in many other works as an Easter egg. Even in Jason Goes to Hell, the Necronomicon prop appears, which suggests that Jason Voorhees was resurrected by it. The Darkhold, while well known to comic fans, has only recently become widely recognized in pop culture thanks to the MCU's WandaVision and Doctor Strange 2, which put it front and center. Now, millions know of the Darkhold as that scary book that corrupted Wanda. The Necronomicon has a cool meta origin. It was originally a fictional book within H.P. Lovecraft's stories, and Sam Raimi's team adapted that concept, dialing it up to 11. Raimi's Necronomicon became so iconic that many people think of it rather than Lovecraft's text when they hear Necronomicon. It's appeared in comics, games, and movies outside of Evil Dead as the reference for forbidden tomes. The Darkhold, meanwhile, was Marvel's answer to having a Lovecraftian evil book in their universe. First appearing in Marvel Comics in the 1970s, it allowed Marvel to explore horror themes and monsters, including, but not limited to, werewolves, vampires, and Cthulhu-esque elder gods within superhero stories. Marvel even published a 1990s series, Darkhold Pages, from the Book of Sins, where heroes hunted down its missing pages. Today, the Darkhold's inclusion in mainstream Marvel media shows the near-perfect fusion of comic book and horror lore. In a sense, the Darkhold and Necronomicon are spiritual cousins, and fans have long drawn parallels. There was even an official crossover comic where Ash Williams ended up in the Marvel Zombies universe using the Necronomicon to battle undead Marvel heroes. So these two books have indirectly crossed paths in the realm of pop culture. Marvelous verdict. Well, the Darkhold is unique in Marvel as the end-all be-all of evil books. It's basically the dark magic encyclopedia of the Marvel Universe. There are other grimoires, but none as all-encompassing. It's explicitly linked to an elder god, which gives it a Lovecraftian flair. Fittingly, Marvel calls it the Book of the Damned. It doesn't usually have a goofy personality or single-purpose shtick. Instead, it's portrayed as ominously mundane in appearance, an old book with dark runes, but supremely, or rather infinitely, evil in content. The Necronomicon, on the other hand, is instantly recognizable for its grotesque appearance. A leathery cover with a distorted face and teeth, basically looking as cursed as it is. Fans know that anytime a Necronomicon shows up, bad things are about to happen in spectacularly gross fashion. Uniquely, the Evil Dead Necronomicon often behaves like a character itself. It giggles, it bites, its pages can shriek. In Army of Darkness, Ash finds 3 Necronomicons. 2 are decoys. 1 bites his hand and flaps around like an angry bat. This was played for laughs, but interestingly, modern Evil Dead canon picked up on that idea. Evil Dead Rise reveals the book in that film is one of 3 volumes, implicitly tying back to the 3 seen in Army of Darkness. So the Necronomicon may actually come in multiple editions. How considerate of the Dark Ones to print limited collector's sets. Each copy is equally nasty, however. In the final tally, Marvel's Darkhold and the Evil Dead's Necronomicon are both heavyweight champions of evil lore and backstory, but each with its own style. The Darkhold is an artifact of chaos, linked to an elder god and capable of world-ending sorcery, while the Necronomicon is a viscerally horrifying conduit of demonic forces, reliably turning any scenario into a gore-fest of possessions and undead mayhem. The Darkhold's magic is broader and arguably more powerful overall, and pretty much spans everything from vampirism to multiversal travel and time travel, whereas the Necronomicon is focused on summoning pure evil in corporeal form. Ultimately, each book's danger and uniqueness have earned them a legendary spot in pop culture. Whether you're a superhero or a hapless cabin vacationer, the rule is the same. Don't read the evil Latin mumbo-jumbo aloud unless you're ready to face an elder god or a swarm of deadites, or maybe even both. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.